This is Too Many Words with Jayme Bedingfield. Welcome to the show. Thanks for listening, everybody. This is episode 8 now. So I'm doing some time here. So are you. Thank you for listening. I have Dane Cobain on in a little bit. He is an author, a poet, a musician. Author of Eyes Like Lighthouses, When the Boats Come Home, which is a poetry book, and No Rest for the Wicked, which I am in the middle of right now, and it is thrilling and fun. Very powerful words. Good stuff. How's everything going by you guys? What's new? What do you have on your docket in your story? What curveballs have been thrown your way? What of unexpected good news, unexpected bad news? What's the deal with you? I've been having some ups and downs. As such as life, there are ups and there's downs, good things and bad things, and sometimes you're more up and other times you're more down. And I've been kind of, a bit of a ping pong. I have things that I'm excited about and things that I'm less excited about. On Friday afternoon, roughly 3 o'clock, I found out that Booktrope, the publisher of The Highly Capable and was supposed to be the Immensely Powerful, is closing their doors. They're ceasing business. What does that mean for Ruby Dawson Saga? Right now, it means that it's on hold. The Highly Capable will be available. The Booktrope version of The Highly Capable will be available until May 31st. Production on The Immensely Powerful is on hold, and there's I don't have enough information right now to make any solid decisions. So until I have all the information available to me for me to make the best decision for the Ruby Dawson Saga, she will just be on hold. I have up and down moments, but this only affects the Ruby Dawson Saga. Elliot Granger will still be having new chapters every week, both on the podcast and my blog. Too Many Words is going to continue to do what we do. I have my YA book that I've been pitching around. I've been talking to you about it. Well, that is undergoing some changes. This is good. I'm excited for that. I'm excited for you guys. I'm excited for this podcast. I'm excited for how you guys and everybody else who has, you might not be listening to me here, but everyone with all the awesome support with the Elliot Granger and the Clueless Brigade podcast launch has been awesome. I appreciate the support from you guys so much. Another real quick note about the Ruby Dawson Saga. The team that worked on that with me, I learned so much from them. The whole experience, I learned a lot. I am not the same writer I was before I signed with Booktrope because I learned so much. And my creative team has been just amazing to work with. And my readers have been amazing. So if you're a reader and if you have supported The Highly Capable and all that is Ruby, thank you. And like I said, Ruby will be on hold for right now until I know everything that I need to know so I can make the proper decisions. My other works are available to you. So, yeah. I mean, that's my basic update, my general work update. Some things have changed. It's been a big week. And let's see. What do we got? So, I have 3 dogs, as you guys probably all know this already. And one of them, Bilbo Baggins, my youngest, he is son to my golden retriever and my Rottweiler. I had a surprise litter last summer, and we kept Bilbo Baggins. And when he was super young and we decided he was the one that we were going to keep, there was a lot of names. He was Luke for a second, Luke as in Luke Skywalker, and Wind and Badger, but there was still just not the quite quite the right name, and my family was definitely focused on giving him a cool name. So we went with Bilbo Baggins. Now it's funny that he's almost a year, and Bilbo Baggins, the dog, is a good-natured thief. That's just his personality. He is sweet and he hugs and he takes his whole 97-pound body and lumps it into yours. But at the same time, he will take your paper towel right out of your hands while you're under this, like, you don't even know what's happening. You're like, oh, Bilbo's looking at me. And then he has your napkin in his hand. And, he's incredibly well trained. He really is. Unless he knows you're not watching. And he will, knock, empty out the garbage can, take everybody's pants out of their laundry baskets and put them on our stairs and down the hallway. And it's funny because he is such a good-natured thief. I mean, he's so good-natured, but he's just a rotten thief. And it's fun. It's like the name Bilbo Baggins is just such a powerful name to give a creature that it's like he gets his, he gets his personality. It's like the One Ring. He also, Bilbo, he's very serious when it comes to getting affection, and when he comes for affection and he doesn't get it, he gets upset, and he'll walk up to me while I'm working and kind of like throw himself at me, like pet me, and sometimes I'll tell him, like, not right now. I've got this character drama and I have this plot hole and I have this article that needs to be finished and I need to figure out what I'm gonna talk about on my podcast. But when I do this, when I tell Bilbo that it's not the time for loving, he gets upset and he'll knock my books off my bookshelf and look at me like, all right, well, I'm knocking your books down. Or he'll go and stand on the sofa in the sitting area in my office and pick up a pillow and throw it on the ground and look at me like, all right, you don't want to pet me right now? Your pillow's gonna get it. I don't know. Paths in life, paths in story. I mean, it's all mirrored, right? I mean, we all have issues to go through and things to overcome and goals. Theoretically, we all have goals. And I mean, sometimes it helps me to look at a hard week and be like, okay, well, that was just a rough few chapters and, there's going to be this change soon and everything's going to get better, and by I say help, I don't mean this is a healthy way. Like, I mean, I wonder sometimes about the lines, right? I've got story and life, like it all meshes together. I mean, sometimes I'm, and my office is like in the downstairs, not basement because there's windows and stuff, but it's like, it's all intents and purposes, it's a basement, but it's a downstairs. I don't know. Anyway, so it's kind of dark and colder than the other parts of the house. And I'm, sometimes I'm down here for 7 hours and I'll come out and I'll have no idea like that the sun is out or what time it is or what weather it is. And it's all very disorienting. My husband will be like, oh, how was writing? And, I like hiss. No, I'm joking. Perspective is everything. That's what I'm finding. And knowing this does not help when my perspective is complete shit. Certainly not. Not all the time anyway. But perspective is power. If you can think about some qualities that human beings have, like patience, extreme patience, especially with children, I consider this a superpower. I'm okay. I mean, I'm pretty good with my kids. My patience, I'm not a patient person by any stretch of the imagination. I'm dedicated. I'm hardworking, but I'm not patient, which makes the writing career challenging some days. I'll put all this work in. I'm like, I want answers now, but but perspective. A good thing that I can say that I'm very excited. And you've been hearing me talk about this high fantasy book and I was talking to H.M. Jones last week. I was like, I really just want to work on this. Well, now, especially around May 10th, I'm going to be able to officially kick off working on that. And I'm really excited. I'm really excited to work on that project. There's some really excited characters that I'm looking forward to exploring. And the world building itself is so fun. So I'm going to be able to put a little bit more time than that sooner than I expected. And that, my friends, is good news. I'm also working on this short story that I'm really excited about. I haven't written much or really anything before where the setting was outer space. And we're in outer space right now, and it is so much fun. It is fun to just take nothing and turn it into an entire world. Making up a world, everything is there because I put it there. So, there's not really a rule I can break. I can just decide to do something. Of course, I'm gonna keep you guys in mind as I do this, but it's good stuff. There is a lot of good stuff. One thing now, of course, I allowed myself today. I was like, okay, you can start working on this high fantasy. Go ahead and take about an hour today and just have fun writing it. It'll be good. As I opened the notebook, I instantly, because I think I've mentioned before, all my writing is done at first in notebooks with pen. That's just how I have to work. My first draft has to have that connection, that scribbling of the pen, even though technically I probably can't hear it over all my really loud music, my angsty blaring. Nonetheless, I need it. So that's the first step. So I had this new notebook all ready for it, and I opened the notebook and I'm like, I don't know about this, guys. I don't know. So I was just thinking about it. And then I closed my eyes and I told myself, no, this isn't like some sort of nervous block, but I'm just getting used to the story. So starting at the beginning isn't going to be something that I'm going to be able to do because there's still so much I have to learn. What about me? And then I wrote down, what interests you about this story? And then I wrote Persania. And then I wrote for a while. It's all about angles, I think. And yes, I'm going to talk about this with writing, but I think it can be applied to most things. And I think it feeds into perspective. But when stories happen, they're centered around characters and they're set in a world. And that takes time. And it's bigger. It has to be bigger than the story that's being read or witnessed or viewed or whatever. You have to feel the fact that the world that you're visiting isn't small, that you're just getting a piece of it. So sometimes going at a certain angle and it's not working, it doesn't mean that those characters or that story isn't working. It just means that the door in which we're choosing isn't the correct one. That's at least what I'm going with. And the same concept applies to getting your book out to the world. And again, I really think this applies to everything because I can think of other things in my life where it has nothing to do with the written word. It has nothing to do with creating, but it's just life. It's just dealing with different things. Sometimes when you're looking at your problem, it's hard to see a way around it. It's hard to see a way out, a way to solve it. Just like a plot point, just like a chunk of blank spaces. Because when we're writing stories, when we're creating content, it's living. It's life. It's a representation of life. So sometimes a different angle needs to be found, a different way in. Life is challenging. That's something I think we can all agree on. We all have our obstacles or things that we don't like to do. And it's funny because as an adult, there's not a lot of fudged lines. Like when you drop the ball, when you forget to pay a bill, it's really obvious. Like, okay, the stakes are high. And those kind of chores, like paying bills and stuff, is like, I don't know. I mean, maybe like I don't know if you feel like this, but like I feel like super anxious. Like, oh, okay, I'm getting ready to pay the recycling bill. All right, I'm gonna pull up the website now. I hope it doesn't. I hope I can find what I need to find. Then I'm okay. I'm gonna hit the submit, and and then I do it, and I feel like this giant sense of accomplishment. Like, all right, I've done the adult thing for a while. I don't know. I'm doing okay. I have things to focus on, and I have things that I'm putting on hold, and then things again going back to, priorities. I'm this week not doing as hot as I did last week as far as work-life balance. Last week I can feel like I was definitely handling it, and this week I'm just kind of, you know, crying in my notebooks and like bloodshot staring at the computer screen like, okay, this next link is going to answer. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to have all my answers and everything will be set and all of my goals will be accomplished. If things really worked like that, I bet it wouldn't be as fun. I've been writing a piece. I've been working on a piece about happiness and about making room for happiness. How purposely doing things that we care about doing, that we want to do, that make us happy to do is really important. And, how it helps with navigating the more challenging, upsetting, disappointing aspects of life is constantly filling that happiness bucket and, and stuff. And I'm good news, guys. I'm continuing to play World of Warcraft with my husband. I'm getting really good. We've been doing dungeons and I could do more damage and I'm working on that, but I'm getting good and I'm having fun. I'm having fun as a hobby I am playing an undead character and I am being inspired with my play, with some of the stuff I'm working with on my high fantasy book. Don't get that twisted, though. It is not World of Warcraft fanfiction by any stretch of the imagination. I got inspiration at the grocery store the other day. I dropped a loaf of bread on the ground and I was like, oh, I'll put that in a book. So anyway, I don't know how accurate that is. I am working on the hobby thing. I'm breakdancing less than I was last week because I tried this move. I saw it. I was kind of getting the groove of some of these songs. I'm like, okay, I'm ready to do something crazy. And I went to do something crazy and my neck and my shoulder were like, yeah, you know what? You're not 17. So that hurt. And it was like, I had this pain in my neck that was like, it was terrifying enough where I was like, okay, well, you know what? I don't want to push it. Mother's Day is coming up. So if you don't have anything planned, it's time to panic. I am really excited. I'm prepared for Mother's Day because I have a tattoo appointment. I'm so excited. And even though I was putting it on for some weird reason, because sometimes I like keeping myself from having fun unless I've, make sure I've worked hard enough for it. But anyway, it's Mother's Day. I talked to my tattoo artist. I told him what I wanted, what we're working on. There's flying books and there's birds and there's clouds and there's magic doors and it's the start of my sleeve and it's going to cover my shoulder and I'm excited because it's getting warmer out and tank top season is a great time to show off new tattoo sleeves. And I'm getting excited even though there's only 3 episodes left. The 100 season 3 has been fabulous, and I'm really looking forward to this week's episode. And I'm not going to talk about what happened because I've learned my lesson, guys. I'm not going to spoil shows for you guys anymore, but I love it and it's good. And if you're not watching it, watch it because it's fun and it's awesome. And Octavia is awesome. And I'm not spoiling anything by saying Octavia is awesome because it's just an opinion. So sometimes writing backwards helps. Sometimes asking myself questions on paper helps. Sometimes vacuuming helps. Like seriously, like I can't even tell you. And it's like, it doesn't matter if I already know this or not, but I'll be reading, I'll be like staring at my computer screen. I'll be like, think of something brilliant. Nothing comes when I work like that. And I'll be like, okay. And then I'll go vacuum, and I do everything to music. I do chores, I drive, I write, I walk the dogs, I shower, I fold clothes, everything that I do, I cook dinner, everything I do it to music. I've kind of always, I can't think of at any point in my life where I didn't operate this way, even as a kid. Music, it adds a layer of magic to everything, in my opinion, because, like, seriously, like, next time you're in the grocery store, wear headphones and listen to the music. It depends on the mood. Go to the grocery store and listen to the Lord of the Rings. Well, you know what? Picking out plums is going to feel epic and important. Or, this is good for awkward social interactions. Listening to the Shins' new slang, it really just highlights those awkward moments and makes you feel like you're inside of an indie movie. So yes, music helps. Music helps with the mundane. It helps other stuff. Listen to, this is a good one, guys. Listen, and this, I guess this is only local, but it also, if you don't live in the Seattle area and you don't know what 99 is, just if you have, and I'm sure everyone has this, a local retail store ridden, traffic light ridden, pretty dangerous stretch of highway. If you have one of those, it's 99. It's just like 99. But anyway, drive down a road like that and listen to Tool, and you'll feel like there's zombies everywhere. And if you don't feel like that, let me know what you feel like. That's at least how I feel. I feel like there's zombies everywhere. The world is riddled with stories, both real and fiction. And before I continue on anymore, let's talk to Dane Cobain. After this note, I'll be talking to him. Dane Cobain, welcome to the show.
Hiya, thanks for having me.
So how's it going?
Yeah, it's not too bad. Busy day over here. Yesterday was a bank holiday here in the UK, so it means we've got 2 days worth of work to catch up today. But yeah.
Yep. The Tuesday that's a Monday, but not really.
Yeah, fake Monday.
So I've been reading both of your books, both No Rest for the Wicked and Eyes Like Lighthouses, and I gotta say, your words are really powerful. They really they come across with a bang.
Oh, thank you. Well, I can't claim all the credit. I mean, a lot of it's my editor as well and my proofreader, but thank you.
I always make a joke when I have a conversation. I'm just like, yo, sorry, I need an editor to really be clever.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You see a lot of authors sort of, in their acknowledgements in their books or whatever, they'll say, any mistakes are mine and not my editor's, and I think that's definitely the case.
Yeah. And you're headed to a concert in a little bit, right?
I am, yeah. I'm going to see, what's his name? Jeffrey Lewis, he's called. I've not heard of him until about a week ago, but he's a very interesting musician. He's sort of, he's quite sort of alternative and a little bit experimental, but he's also a comics artist as well. So he tends to play shows and then kind of broadcast bits of his comics on screens behind him.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what to expect. I don't even know where the venue is, to be honest, but I know I'm going, so...
Well, and then I was just doing that before talking to you, but I was, just Googling you as I do with my guests to just get an idea. And you've got you have your hand in a lot of projects.
I do, yeah. I mean, I never usually know where to start, to be honest. I mean, it's interesting because you've read No Rest for the Wicked and Eyes Like Lighthouses, and they're two sort of very different books. And I've got a non-fiction project on the go at the moment. I've got like a novella based on a screenplay that I wrote as well. So yeah, lots of different stuff happening.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I too, I like to have lots going on, which helps when certain things take longer or there's speed bumps in them. It's nice to hop around different projects.
Well, yeah, and to have that choice open to you as well. Although it does work the other way though. If you've got, if you've got a round of edits have come back or something, then you have to put all your effort into that, and it doesn't leave so much time for the other things like for the book blog I run, for example. Sometimes that has to take second place.
And that's social shelves, right?
Yeah, social bookshelves. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was reading your review length.
Well, with the well, I suppose there are so many book blogs out there that you want to have a point of difference, I suppose. Although it's weird because it's become second nature to me. I mean, I suppose just to explain to your listeners, that's the way it works is that I take the number of pages in the book and then write a review with that number of words. And I guess part of it for me is that I didn't want to spend hours writing a really long review for a really short book. So it was the best way I could think of to try and I guess spending a corresponding amount of time on my reviews than I do actually sort of reading the books.
Yeah,
it does get confusing though, because sometimes running a book blog, I get a lot of emails from authors and PRs and that sort of thing who want me to review their book, and I don't always remember to mention that that's how I do my reviews. So sometimes I'll get a book and it'll be sort of 30 pages long, and I'll feel bad because it could be an amazing book, and I'm going to struggle to review it in that few words. But I kind of like the challenge, I suppose. And, they still get the benefit of the ratings and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting. That's like, I was thinking about it. It's a way to get really personal with the book that you're reading, to spend that much time thinking about it in order to write that much about it. That it sounds fun. I got to say, I'm intrigued to try that myself.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, also when I'm reading them, I tend to be. I mean, I don't necessarily make notes on what I'm going to talk about, but stuff will stand out as I'm reading them, and then I'll kind of come back to that and mention that as well. So, and I think as well, actually, what I don't know, what I think, since as well as being an author myself, I mean, I actually probably put more thought into things like the editing and things like the cover design and even like the look and feel of the book. I mean, I don't know, I'm quite a snob when it comes to books, and I only read paperbacks, or any physical copies. And so usually in my reviews I also judge them on things like the quality of the print and the paper and the cover design and that sort of thing as well.
Nice. Yeah. There's nothing quite like having a paperback in your hand. I got to agree with you there.
For sure. Well, I mean, I'm a hoarder, but only when it comes to books. So I kind of hoard all of the books that I buy. So
me too.
I've got 5 bookcases or something. So kind of books everywhere in my house.
Yeah, I have it set up so like I have a whole bunch. My bookshelves are like my office walls.
Yeah. Well, I also I alphabetize them all as well, so I can find whichever ones I'm looking for, because otherwise that's kind of a problem. And actually, one of the things that I've been trying to do with my book blog, and I'm getting closer to it now, is to actually go back and review everything that I've read as well. So not just new stuff, but stuff that I read as a kid and that sort of thing. But the closer I get to having all that completed, it basically means that I can search my blog to see whether I've got a book, and that sort of thing.
Oh, that's cool.
It comes in handy when if I can't remember the author of a book, then I don't really know where to start looking for it, and I use it a lot when I'm out shopping or whatever as well. So if I see a book that I want, I can check whether I've read it, because it's getting to that point now where I've got too many and I can't remember.
For No Rest for the Wicked, could you tell me a little bit about like your journey as far as just how you came to that story?
Yeah, I mean it's one of the more interesting ones really because so
I had a feeling.
probably well the story itself is at least sort of 7 years old, I want to say. If you actually when you read it, and all the dates that are in it were kind of around the time that I first started planning it out and started writing it. I actually wrote it. I wrote the first draft in my second year of university, so I'd had a nightmare, and that was where the basic kind of idea of the evil angels, where that came from, and then I wrote that down when I woke up, kind of left it for maybe 3 months, and then went back to it and started sort of fleshing it out into a full story, and then I finished writing that up in my second year of uni, and I did actually have a limited number of them sort of printed on a print-on-demand basis, just so that friends and family could read it. But it was the project that I was leading with when I sort of pitched to publishers and that sort of thing. And I actually it was originally just called Angels, which, if you've read the story, it kind of makes sense for that to be the title. But I had some initial interest from a publisher, an independent one called Dead Star, and they suggested changing the name, and they had kind of good reasoning behind it, really, that it doesn't kind of convey the genre properly. And so if you just looked at it just on title alone, you wouldn't really get a feel for what the story was actually about. Yeah. So I was looking around for new titles, and then one of the characters happened to say "No Rest for the Wicked."
Yeah, in fact, yeah.
So that then it's really weird because the character said that before the title came about, and then I like having that in there, but it's not something where I got the title and then worked that back into the narrative. It was sort of was already in there, and I just sort of jumped on it.
Nice.
So I think things fell through with that first publisher, and so probably about 3 years later, I submitted it to Book Trope, which I believe you're also part of the Book Trope family.
Yep. Yes, I am.
There's a lot of news around that too.
Yes, there is.
About, really, isn't there? But but anyway, that got picked up through Book Trope. I actually met Jesse James Freeman, who's obviously the former VP of Community Management, and I met him through my book blog. I'd reviewed a few Book Trope books here and there, and he let me know that submissions were open, so I submitted. They got picked up, and I suppose the rest is history, really.
That's awesome. I know it's such a process.
Yeah, for sure.
Creating the book alone and then actually getting it out there. It sounds like, The Highly Capable that's been about a 7-year project as well, 7 years in the making.
Well, there's another project that I'm working on at the moment called Formally, and that's it tells the rise and fall of a social network, basically, but it's it markets itself as a social networking site for the dead, but basically it's used by living people. They use it as a kind of private diary, and then after their death, their profile then goes live, and it causes all sorts of shenanigans with, criminals hiding details of their activities that only come to light after they die, and all this sorts of stuff. But that's been going on probably about 3.5 years now, something like that, and it's just getting to the point now where the manuscript's ready.
Nice. That sounds really like a fun thing to write.
It was a lot of fun, yeah. I mean, but yeah, it's such a long process from the first draft to getting all the editing done and polishing the manuscript and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping to get that out this year at some point.
Oh, nice. I'll have to keep my eye out on that. That sounds like definitely something that I would like to read.
For sure. Well, what I'll do is I'll let you know once it's close to publication. Anyway, I might be able to, give you an advance copy or something like that.
Oh yeah, that would be awesome. And then I saw on your site Forsaken RPG.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was a bit of fun, really. I mean, so again, I suppose it all came about a year ago, really. When I was No Rest for the Wicked was picked up by Forsaken, which was Book Trope's horror imprint. And just around about the time that was happening, I don't know, like as we kind of discussed earlier, I like to try and write in different formats. And one of the things that I thought was that I'd never written the storyline for a game, basically. And there's a piece of software called RPG Maker, which is it's quite cheap software that you can get, and a lot of people develop kind of add-ons and that sort of thing. But yeah, so I just, over the space of sort of 2-3 months, I created a game using some of the people that I'd met as kind of the inspirations for the characters, and then, you know, wrote a bit of a storyline for it. I actually I had to stop working on it because I hit like an inbuilt limitation with the software, so
Oh man,
my world map couldn't be any bigger than it was.
you were creating more than it can handle.
Yeah, exactly, and I couldn't figure out a decent way to get around it, so I thought, okay, let's try and finish off the story here. So
That's cool. That sounds fun. I like to figure out different ways that, you know, that I can put, you know, my storytelling and stuff. I actually just launched a fictional podcast that every week a new chapter comes out, and it's a serial. It all builds. It's basically like, you know, a book series, but it week by week. It's been fun.
It's interesting that you're doing that, really, because that's kind of, I mean, that's how a lot of the sort of the more classical authors used to publish. You know, people like Dickens used to serialize in magazines and stuff. So I suppose it's kind of, I don't know, our current generation's way of doing that. I know you can publish, you know, blog articles and that sort of thing, but it's quite exciting to do things with audio and things like that, you know, weren't really available.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, totally with Dickens. I was thinking about that too. And you know, it's fun because you know, it's actually a great way to edit, you know, like reading out loud, you're able to hear your words. So that's actually how I came to even thinking about it, because I started Elliot Granger and the Clueless Brigade is the name of it. And I actually started it on my blog, and then I was reading it out loud, and I had already started Too Many Words at that time. And I'm like, I have an idea.
Yeah. Cool.
Oh, and and you also, I saw that you make music on SoundCloud as well.
I do, yeah.
I listen to your song Sober.
Oh yeah, that's my newest one, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I was clicking around on your blog, and then you know, going back different posts, and I saw that, and yeah, that brought me to your SoundCloud, and again, I listened to it.
Cool. What'd you think?
I really liked it. I really liked it a lot, and it was I read what you wrote about, you know, and it was a funny way to set the stage, because you were talking about how you weren't sober when when you wrote it. This is actually probably this is my first podcast interview I'm recording, like without at least a beer in me, because it's you know, I've got coffee, but.
Well, yeah, I suppose, yeah, it's got quite early on your end. I mean, I was tempted over here because it's just coming up to 6 p.m. in the evening here, so, but, yeah, I mean, I find it to be, it's quite a good way of, I don't know, of sort of de-stressing, I suppose. It's, as much as, you know, writing is quite therapeutic, I don't know, because of the fact that I sort of sing as well, so, you know, I don't know, it's more of a sort of a physical stress reliever thing when you're sort of singing and playing guitar than, you know, just sitting there with a keyboard or a pen and paper.
Yeah, totally.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's weird because music's how I got into writing to a certain extent, because I think when I was sort of 14, I was just picking up the guitar and I was writing kind of very basic songs. I actually used to write songs when I was about 6 or 7 years old, but I mean, I say I wrote songs, I basically took existing pop songs and then just rewrote the lyrics. Or in one case, actually, I did a 12-bar blues song, so it's pretty simple. But and so I kind of I picked up the guitar when I was about 14 and started learning to play it and learning to write things. And then from there, I went into keeping a journal, and then from there, it was into sort of bits of poetry and little sort of short stories and stuff. And then from there, that's when I decided. I think I got to about 16, 17 and realised that actually it's quite difficult to be a rock star. Whereas if I study kind of writing and hone the craft of writing, at least there are kind of more practical jobs that I can go into with it. So
yeah, no, you know, I think about that too, because like, you know, a writing career, it's challenging. It's a challenging thing to build. It's depending on the week, you know, at least how, you know, me, one week I'm like, oh, it's awesome, and the next week it's like, well, I suck at all of this. But it's
yeah. Well, it's interesting because my day job where I'm at now, actually, I'm at the office at the moment, and I have a job in social media marketing, but it's quite related to writing, and a lot of it comes down to things like blog posts, or, you know, even writing a status update for a client is, you know, a form of writing, and a lot of the same rules in terms of, you know, show don't tell, and keeping it as sort of, well, focusing on brevity and that sort of thing. But I was thinking, that there is always, I could have in another life, I'm sure I'm a journalist or something like that, but actually kind of working in marketing, it gives me enough kind of writing time in my day job, if you will, to kind of keep me sharp at it without it just being solid writing all day, and then so that I come home in the evening and can't bring myself to do any more. And I think also just having that experience in marketing, obviously I can then try and apply that to selling my own books as well.
Totally. Well, and it's also exactly like, to figure out how to get different, marketing, it's a creative thing. You have to think about different ways to do stuff. It's probably a way to use your creative muscle as well.
Well, it's a lot of it is effectively storytelling as well.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly now at the moment, again, like I say, with the trend of everything going towards sort of online and that sort of thing. But one of the big buzzwords, if you will, is content marketing, which a lot of people refer to it as, but that's basically the practice of putting out things like ebooks and blog posts and that sort of thing, that's compelling stuff that people are going to want to read. But quite often people sort of cite the first example of content marketing, or one of the early ones, as the Michelin Guide. Purely because it was developed by Michelin and they wanted people to buy more tires. And the problem is that people weren't driving enough. So they brought out the Michelin Guide, which tells them about all of these amazing restaurants they can go and eat at. And so they're, just providing this information to people. And then people drive to the restaurants. They're using their car more. Their tires need replacing more often. And then they get, more tire sales. So it's quite an interesting, I suppose, approach to marketing, where they lead with, giving somebody that piece of information, or that's that story.
No, yeah, that is interesting. Well, process in general, like there's so much out there to grab, to watch, to read, to listen to, and it's all got its own journey, and I think that's so interesting.
Yeah, I agree. And it's making sure it all ties in together as well. In some ways, one of the sort of basic rules that we try and follow when we're looking at what piece of content to create or whatever is you want to hit people with the right message in the right place at the right time. And I think in many ways that's what you need to do with a book. It's
absolutely.
But with a book, it's, I don't know, I think with marketing you get a lot more opportunities to try and get that mixture right, whereas with a book you spend 3 years on it, and if you get it wrong you got to wait another 3 years until your next book. And so
yeah, well, and it's something I always say to myself is writing is rewriting. You've got a book, you think it's done, and then you go back to it and you're like, oh well, throw in a bunch of different names, change that storyline into this, and and it's kind of cool that way too, is because you don't have you change a few things and then it's very different.
Yeah, I think you're right. But to some extent that I think that happens naturally through the editing process almost. One of the things with Formally, well, that's been going through editing. I've just got my my last batch of edits back, so I'm just going through it sort of one final time. But I think particularly with that book, I don't know, I had quite a grand vision in mind, and I think as an author it's easy to get carried away, and then you do sometimes need an editor to come in and say, well, actually, this bit, that this subplot or whatever, this just dilutes the storyline, so either rewrite it or take it out or something. But again, doing that can then give you ideas that you can apply somewhere else. So
yeah, totally. No, it is so important to have editors to come in and read your work without being inside your head, because creating it's all in your head, so reading it back, it means something different to us than it does to other people.
Sure. Even down to the way that you imagine characters and stuff. I think that's one of the unsung jobs of a lot of editors, is actually making sure that the author's characters are consistent, because you've got a very firm idea of what who this character is and how they'd act and what they'd do, and quite people often say as well, they start to take on a life of their own and then maybe do things you don't expect them to do. And I think having especially with someone who's an editor who's, you know, a keen reader. Quite often they're writers themselves, and so they can start to look at things and actually, you know, check, well, is it consistent? Would they do this? And occasionally you'll find, you know, a character's doing something or acting in a certain way just because it's needed for the storyline, rather than because it's necessarily what that character would do in that situation.
Well, totally, and I think that's just a really cool. I mean, I happen to love the editing process for those reasons, because you're taking this idea and taking this hard work, and you're constructing it into something that, you know, other people can enjoy and can understand.
Yeah, and relate to as well. I think as well.
Creating and the creative process. I mean, I always find that, like, my head is almost always somewhere else as I go through, you know, my day. I'm plotting away and thinking of these things. Like, do you feel like your head is in the clouds a lot?
Yes and no, I think. I tend to be at one end of the scale or the other, really. I mean, I'm actually, it does depend, because I tend to be quite organised as well. So I'm quite often sort of, I don't know, I quite often work off a to-do list, and that works quite well. But also, I mean, I carry a notebook everywhere, and I'm always emailing myself little notes and things when stuff occurs to me. I don't know. I think when you're a writer, I think you don't really stop. There's not really such a thing as stopping. I mean, even if you don't realize you're thinking about a project or something, like, quite often you go to sleep and not actively think about something, and in the morning you'll wake up and your answer will be there, I suppose. So.
Yeah, totally. Or, like, if you actually, you step away and you're doing something. Like, I was vacuuming the other day, and I was like, oh, that's what I do there.
Yeah, but sometimes it's really impractical though as well. I mean, the worst one is I do it quite a lot, where I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll have an idea, and you know, I've tried, you know, leaving a notebook beside my bed and stuff, but I never use that because I can never, like, I don't want to get up and turn a light on or something. I mean, usually I think what I do, and I don't know, if it's a really, really good idea and I know I don't want to forget it, then I'll use the voice recorder on my phone and just mumble into it and then look at it in the morning. Or usually what I'll actually do is, if something like that, I'll have this idea and I'll be like, okay, right, I'm just going to keep that in my head. And if I remember it in the morning, it was a good idea. And if I forget it, it wasn't a good idea. So,
yeah, I have that too. Holding on to ideas. I have a whole, like, box that's just filled with, like, different pieces of, like, receipts and papers,
fragments and scraps and little notes. And yeah, I mean, I've even been known to do that with things like character names as well. And I'm just like, oh, that's a cool name. I'm going to write that down, see when I can use it. And more often than not, it never gets used, but it's nice to know it's there.
Exactly. Well, and it's like like, all thoughts and everything, I feel like build on each other. So even if, like, I have, like, an awesome plot point on a yellow piece of paper somewhere at the bottom of the box that I might not know exactly what it is, I feel like it'll come back to me and be helpful at some point in some way.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, one of the things that I've been noticing more and more recently as well is that the more I go over something, it doesn't really feel as though I'm actually, I don't know, not like nailing it down anymore or anything. If anything, it's the more I look at something, the more I think about it, the more I see, you know, different possibilities and different ways that, you know, that things could work. And so, I know it's an interesting one, because I'm actually, to some extent, I'm trying to change my approach to writing to some extent, more to have this kind of view where everything is fluid and nothing is ever final, if you know what I mean. Because I think that gives me a bit more freedom, especially when I'm going through the editing rounds, rather than trying to have this definite idea of this is what the book is and I need to remove anything that, you know, takes off in a different direction. Sometimes it is those sort of different directions that actually
work,
add a bit more to it as well. So I think one of the things that I want to try and do is I want to have more kind of passes over my work, but, you know, I don't want to spend any more time on it as such, but I do want to go over the entire manuscript more times, if that makes sense. So even if it is, instead of usually what I'd do is I'd write something and then I'd give it a few rounds of editing myself, and then I'd hand it over to an editor or something. But whether I'd try and do something more where I'll have a quick read through and I'll just jot down ideas, and then maybe send it to an editor and get their thoughts, and then, you know, do some more significant rewrites rather than just trying to, I suppose, tidy up what is there.
I feel what you're saying there, because like for a while I was very directed as far as my overall end goal of certain books,
yeah.
and then allowing myself to just be more free with like what's getting on the paper. I'm finding when it gets to editing, it does help, because it's like, okay, here's this content and this story, but now let's figure out how we can make it different, tighten it up.
For sure. And I think a lot of, well, certainly in my case, I've quite often, you know, where I've had things like No Rest for the Wicked's a good example, where actually between the first draft and the final draft of that, the last half a dozen chapters pretty much all changed. But what it did do is, although I didn't use those original drafts, it gave me kind of things that I could approach bloggers with and that sort of thing, and say, look, I've got this, you know, alternative ending here. I'm not going to do anything with it. Do you want it? You know, so you can usually still kind of get something out of it as well. So I mean, yeah, it can be quite disheartening when you go to edit a book and you realize, I don't know, 2 chapters or 10,000 words or something need to come out, and you're like, well, you know, that took me a month or something, and
yes,
now I'm just taking it out. So it's, I don't know.
Totally.
I don't think none of it's ever wasted, even if you don't use it, and even if you don't, you know, release it as an excerpt or anything like that, it does still help you to, I guess, even going in the wrong direction for a little while, ultimately is going to help you figure out what the right direction is. So, so I don't think it's ever wasted.
To quote Tolkien, not all who wander are lost.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, and sometimes the wondering is the most fun bit, you know.
Oh, it's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of writers will say, you know, the first draft is their favorite draft because really they could do whatever they want in a first draft. It's actually after the first draft when you start need to think about, you know, well, now somebody else is going to read this. Whereas I think in your first draft, you can almost write for yourself and not even think about your audience.
Oh, totally. Well, and then, I mean, the first draft, the beginning, and I've actually written many posts and articles about like the beginning of the story. I love it. And it's not so much like the physical beginning of the book, because, you know, through the editing process that changes, but just the beginning of like new characters, this new world. It's exciting.
It's weird, isn't it? Because I always find I slow down as well. The closer I am to the end, the slower it gets.
Yes.
And so I'm like, wow, I did 50% of the book in 3 months, and it's just taken me another 3 months to do the next 10%. What's going on?
Mm-hmm, totally. I find that I drag my feet around the midpoint too, because it's like, you know, that's always, you know.
Yeah, you look back and you look at it and you think, wow, look how far I've come, and then you're like, wow, I still have a very long way to go. Mm-hmm.
Totally. Well, and the midpoint too is it's something in my head that I build up, because, you know, it's, you know, I think it was Vonnegut that said, you know, find a point to hang your story on, you know, and
makes sense.
But yeah, some trepidation towards certain parts where I'm like, you know, the same thing with reading a book, you know, a book that you really like, you know, you naturally slow down at the end, or at least I do, because I don't want, you know, I don't want to say goodbye to those characters yet, or that world.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And again, could be because I read a lot. I mean, I get that feeling quite a lot, but you get it the other way around as well, though, sometimes, where, you know, no matter how good a book is, you can be getting to the point where you're nearing the end and you're just like, I just want to finish this now. I really enjoyed it, but I just want it to be over, you know. And so, and I mean, I think, well, with No Rest for the Wicked, one of the key bits of feedback I got from that, I suppose, is that the main criticism, if you can call it that, I mean, constructive criticism really, was that the people said it was too short. And I like that, because I'd rather it was too short than too long and people got bored before the end. And also, I don't know, I guess the theory being, if they think it's too short, then great, they'll want to read my next book because they'll want more, you know. So,
yeah, totally. You know what? That's funny, because I actually had I had similar feedback for The Highly Capable, is, you know, is under 55,000 words. And people were saying, like, you know, I wanted more, and it's like, oh, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, well, I think with No Rest for the Wicked as well, I mean, that was just all that the story took. I could have made it longer, but I would have been stretching out the idea just over more pages, and I don't think there were probably little elements I could have done more with, but yeah, you know, I never intended it to be really long, if you know what I mean. Where
Yeah.
and actually, it's interesting because formally it's gone the other way around, where it's probably at this point it's 10 to 15,000 words shorter than it was in sort of first draft format. So, which is it's now putting it, I think, about 60 odd thousand words, which is I quite like because I did think it was too long, and I was like, I don't want I don't want to go from one book being too short to the next one being too long.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm not. It'll be interesting to see the reaction to that. I suppose. I mean, the actual reason that I led with No Rest for the Wicked when I was pitching that to publishers was because I thought it was the one that had the most sort of mainstream appeal, and then I think it's basically a sort of a straight up sort of supernatural thriller, really.
Yeah.
Whereas with Formerly, it's very difficult to even know what to call it. I think at the moment I'm going for like literary fiction, because it's kind of got elements of a thriller, and it's kind of technological in a lot of ways as well. But I couldn't really, I don't know, pinpoint an exact genre. But I definitely think I don't know, it's got less mainstream appeal, I think.
Well, you know what? And I think honestly, like I've been I've been shopping around a contemporary young adult book over the last few months, and from just kind of paying attention, my ear to the ground with like what different agents are looking for. They're looking for things that are different, that haven't been done a million times. So,
well, that's a good sign then. Yeah. I must admit, I do notice that quite a lot of the books that I get offered to review are pretty much like the same book. There's I don't know, there are sort of certain genres that are more in favour at the moment, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, and with certain things, that get really popular, I think it makes an influx of that, just kind of naturally.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it creates a kind of cycle where, I mean, I've never wanted to be the kind of the writer that tries to sort of predict trends and jump on the back of them, and and no offense to people that do, I mean, a lot of people are very successful as well in terms of, they can put out maybe 3 books a year, and they can follow kind of current trends with them and that sort of thing. But I mean, I think most writers do the same. Most writers, I would suspect, I'm certainly one, sort of write what they want to read, and I like reading stuff that most of the people don't really like reading. I mean, I read a kind of a pretty broad mixture of kind of quite a lot of classics and 20th century sort of modern classics as well. And then the kind of contemporary stuff I do read tends to be more alternative stuff, like, I don't know, Irvin Welsh and, Will Self and that sort of thing. And even, I suppose, even more mainstream authors that I read tend to still be, I don't know, they're not people that are doing kind of YA or that sort of thing. It tends to be, I don't know, like, well, Terry Pratchett was a great example. He was a big sort of, I wouldn't say he was an influence on me because my writing's nothing like his, but he definitely was sort of someone who influenced me to start reading.
That's huge. I mean, there's a few authors, when I was a kid, where it was like that's where my book relationship started, and it's like I love these stories so much. I want to be part of the community that contributes to stories, and it can help. Yeah. It can help people get through the day. It can help people get through hard times. That's the YA that I'm pitching. It deals with grief as a teenager, and that's kind of why I've gone that direction, because it's important.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think, I don't know, I was having this discussion the other day, really, where, I don't know, I almost feel like YA isn't actually a genre. It's almost the target market, because, you'll still get, YA fantasy and, YA crime books and YA horror and, and that sort of thing. And I don't know, I mean, I like the odd bit of sort of YA here and there, but it does depend, really. I mean, another thing that I've noticed a lot of, I suppose, as we were talking earlier about sort of what makes a blog different, for example, and a lot of book bloggers will tend to focus on a particular genre, so they'll only read romance, or they'll only read crime, or they'll only read fantasy, or, I mean, a big one is they'll only read YA, and I don't really pigeonhole myself to some extent, I guess. I mean, what I tend to do is that people pitch me all sorts of books, and I'll just pick out the ones that sound interesting, regardless of what the genre is. So I'm sure there are particular types of book that I accept more often, but I'm anything's fair game, really. So
yeah, it's all about just like what interests you. I think the same with writing and reading for me. It's, whatever character or storyline grabs me, whatever thing that I feel like I need to put down on paper. I mean, to go back to just kind of allowing, the freedom of the first draft. I try, and I don't always succeed, but every day I do try to like just set some time where I'm allowed to just free write and not worry about, all the projects I'm working on, and just let myself kind of put words down on the paper. And, that's actually how a pretty awesome idea that I'm excited about, and I have time to start that project.
Well, it's interesting as well. I mean, I'm sure you're the same, where I don't know, for example, with me, I've almost got a backlog of ideas that I want to work on. So I've been planning some stuff out, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to actually start writing it, and I really want to start writing it, but I kind of know I should finish what I've got on at the go at the moment as well. And I mean, I do to an extent devote a bit of time to, like you say, just to free write stuff, but actually that's usually when I end up writing poems and that sort of thing, or potentially I don't know, planning out ideas and things. I'm not very good at just sitting down for an hour and spending that hour trying to plan something. I'd much rather do sort of 5 minutes of little ideas here and there, and another 5 minutes, and sort of start to tie them all together. So I usually have whatever my current writing project is will take up 80% of my time or something, and then the remaining 20% are doing dribs and drabs.
Yeah, and I do also have a like a list of like things that I want to work on, and it's hard because there's some things that I want to do right now, but I have to get other things finished first or in their next stages and that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think with Formally as well. So this is, like I said, I've spent about 3 years on it, and I know I can't really afford to delay at all at any point, because with sort of social media and whatnot moving so quickly as well.
Yeah.
I don't want to miss my chance, if you know what I mean.
Totally.
I'm sure, in terms of the way that we use these kind of sites and everything, I'm sure I've got a good few years left. But I suppose it's more in terms of even some of the dialogue and some of the little things that happen, and it's like, well, this only really works right now. In 5 years' time, that's not how it's going to work. So I quite like that element in that it's almost a snapshot of time.
Yeah.
But it makes sense to release that whilst that time's still happening, rather than release something and be like, this is a snapshot in time of 5 years ago. It's kind of like, well, I'd rather release it whilst that's happening, and then you can kind of, what I mean, then you can look back at it and be like, oh yeah, that was like, this moment in time, and rather than miss the opportunity to run with it. So,
well, I'm excited to read it. It sounds very interesting. I really like the different realities. I mean, that's a funny thing to say, but I mean, like, when you take, present day and change it, or you take, the near future, like, post-apocalyptic type of stuff, dystopian, you take your world and you kind of put it on tilt a little bit and take a different element. I like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's strange that you say that, actually, because in terms of the cover that I've been working on for it, my main, I don't know, I always find it hard to write a brief for a cover artist to work on, and I've never been a fan of having the actual characters on the cover of a book, because I'd prefer it to not have that point of reference, so that people can kind of imagine the characters how you like. So my current 2 covers are kind of more on the abstract side of things, and but the term that I was kind of using to describe what I wanted for the cover for Formally is kind of shifted normality, was what I was calling it. So nice. Basically everything looks normal apart from one tiny little thing. So for example, some of the concepts were like, It's kind of a corridor in an office, and it all looks normal except there's a chair's been knocked over, or again something similar. So there's it's just a desk, because obviously this is about a company effectively. So about a desk where all the desk looks fine except there's a smashed glass on it, or there's some blood on the desk or something like that. So
I like it.
I kind of wanted to reflect that. So at first glance it just looks like a normal everyday situation, and then you kind of realize, oh, hang on, there's something just not quite right here.
I like it. I'm picturing it right now. Yeah, you have the setting. You're like, oh, and then something's off, something slightly different.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost so that this is where it's a tough one to do though, because you don't want to put out a book cover that just looks like just an everyday situation. I mean, so it's a tough thing to get it subtle, but not so subtle that people just completely miss it. So
one of the many tricky things.
yeah. Well, as well as, I mean, I have the greatest respect for people. A few of my author friends are also kind of cover designers, or they'll also do illustration, all that sort of thing. And I mean, for me, I'm pretty good with words, but visuals not so much. I mean, I can use Photoshop.
Yeah.
I can't design a book cover very well. So it's always good to work with somebody who they're the other way around, where the visual stuff is more their area.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on Too Many Words.
That's all right, no problem.
Can you want to tell the listeners where they can find you?
Yeah. Well, like you mentioned, if you Google me, you'll find me, because I'm all over the place.
Yeah, it's true. You're very Googleable.
Yeah, Googleable.
Yeah,
for sure. But my website is danecobain.com. Also, obviously, No Rest for the Wicked and Eyes Like Lighthouses are on Amazon, Waterstones, Barnes and Noble, all that kind of stuff. And you can also find me things like Facebook, Twitter. If you go on my YouTube channel, there are some book trailers and that sort of stuff on there. There's some videos of me reading my poems aloud, actually, as well. So, just Google me. You'll find what you need.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Brilliant. No, thanks for having me.
All right, guys. Well, it was good talking to Dane Cobain and hearing about all his projects and getting into his process a little bit. Good stuff. Definitely go Google him. He's, like we said, he's very Googleable. But yeah, that wraps it up this week. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening. You like what I'm doing here? Remember to leave a review, subscribe, help me out. Good stuff. Follow me on Twitter at @MeBettingfield. Follow the show on Twitter at Too Many Words Pod. And now, for a third Twitter account, you can follow Elliot Granger and the Clueless Brigade on Twitter. Fictional series podcast. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. So you can follow that show at Clueless Brigade. And good stuff. Thanks for listening, and talk to you next week.